Okay, how do I copy the link? Bless me. How do I copy the link? I'm in my studio, so how do I copy the link? As you can see, it's a dark day in the new world today. Mm, oh. Ah, here we go. We click share. Share. Okay. Copy. Yeah, here we go. Okay, I got it. Oh, pardon me. Yesterday I farted. Today I'm burping. Wow. What? What's happened overnight apart from nothing? Oh, I got up this morning to no power, flat phone, flat laptop. It was quite funny. This this new Threads is absolutely useless. Everyone everyone wants you on their feed, but they don't want to come on your post. So everyone's posting for their own personal self gain, but no one actually is commenting, replying, liking, or anything. It's absolutely disgraceful. Yeah, the world now, it's all me, 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 and fuck the rest of the world. It's absolutely disgusting. This is what I'm saying to you guys. No, nobody wants to help each other. It's me, 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 and blow the rest of the world. As long as I'm making money, that's all I care about. You know, it's disgusting. No one like me who actually wants to help other people. It's outrageous. Oh, they're not going to allow the protests anymore. Anyone in the UK now flying the Palestinian flag will be arrested as a hate crime. I don't know how they work that out, but never mind it. Yeah, all this new threat is now is a bunch of silly little girls out of India acting as whores. That's all they're doing, acting as prostitutes. Absolutely hilarious. No wonder it's failed. It's just like a red light. It's just like a red light area. It's absolutely hilarious. And they wonder why the world's failing at a rapid rate. It's disgusting. You know, you'd never date a woman from online now, because all she's doing is whoring herself. You know, it's like an auction site now. You know, oh, I'll whore myself out to the highest bidder. It's funny now. It's funny now because you go online now and it's just a laugh. You know, someone posts now and they've got like 2 views and no replies, maybe 3 likes. You know, I've never seen the world fail so bad as it is now. You know, nobody wants to help each other. I've never seen the world fail so bad as it is now. You know, when will you people actually wake up? You know, in the old days, women would post a picture online and 20,000 Indians would all like their picture. But they're not even liking pictures anymore. It really is so funny. Either 3/4 of the web has been shut down, or there's a major problem. You know, 5 years ago, I'd have asked for comments, likes, whatever, and I'd have had 54,000 people all following me, all liking, or all doing something anyway. Now, you just can't get no reaction. It's like in chat, the only thing we see on the YouTube live chat now is all the Bible bashers talking nonsense. Yeah, it's I don't know why you people have totally destroyed the web now. Now, you guys have been calling trolls. You know, I'm just having a laugh with you, and I know you're having a laugh with me. But I'm talking about the other idiots, the Bible bashers. They haven't got a clue what they're talking about. I need your help, guys. I really do. I'm begging for your help now. I need to get my website out there, and we need to give it a theme, you know, so we can get people on it. This is nonsense. You know, if we all work together, you know, we do a lot better in life. But you refuse to work together, so you're all failing. Absolutely hilarious. I don't understand why you all just want to fail in life. Doesn't make sense. Yeah, that's a good point. How do people have 10,000 followers on Instagram but they've got no posts? Oh, I'm gonna sneeze. 28 minutes I've been here now. Not one person has come into the room. A true leader doesn't create separation. A true leader brings people together. Let me read you some of the threads that are being posted. Sometimes life is not just sad because you don't have money. It gets sad because you have to share a world with stupid people. And yes, it's sadder when you figure out only 2% of the world population is intelligent enough, so your chance of meeting one is very slim, as they're not very social. So you are left in the world with many noisy people saying absolutely nothing, surrounded by many, and still feel lonely because everyone wants to talk about the next party and vanity or girl they've slept with. How right is this guy? That's how sad the world is now. You know, you can be in a full room, but it's empty. Because, as he says, it's just a bunch of idiots together for the party. None of them like each other. They're just there for the free beer. You know, it amazes me. People can talk the talk, but they can't walk the walk. It's absolutely hilarious. This is what I say to you guys on a daily basis. You all want to destroy each other, but none of you actually want to help each other. It really is so funny. I need I need to bring I need to bring a 100-watt bulb in to the room. the really sad part is these kids, they just want to fail. You know, they just don't want to get out of poverty. You know, they can all talk the talk, but none of them can actually walk the walk. Absolutely hilarious. You know, if we all start working together, we can end world poverty. But nobody wants to get out of poverty. They fear money. You know, they fear being actually happy in life. You know, if you all start earning money, you put your phones down, you put your computers down, because you're always out doing something. But you just want failure. It's all me, and blow the rest of the world, you know? So you're all failing. 100,000 people on the streets of London on Saturday. Why were they not in jobs? Why were they not out celebrating with friends and family in local restaurants, local parks? You know? It makes me mad because people, okay, that's a block. People care more about other people than they do themselves, you know? It's, oh, let's worry about terrorists in another country, but our own families are starving to death because we can't feed them because we're too lazy to work. We're too lazy to actually help each other. As that post said, 2% of the world actually want to help each other. I just farted again on feed. Sorry, guys. How rude. You know, all I'm seeing now on the web is a bunch of people that want to fail. It's like IT teams working for online companies, national high street brands. All they want to do is totally destroy the company that they're representing. You know, it's crazy. Even even the British government job centres have given up now trying to get people into work. "20 years I've been back in the UK now, and the British job centres have done absolutely nothing to get me back to work. All they want to worry about is a commitment contract. Basically, it's a form you sign to say that you're going to look for work and you're going to spend 35 hours a week looking for work. You know, they don't actually send you on courses anymore. They don't actually put you in contact with employers. You know, I remember the days when I was a manager running hotels. Reception used to page me overhead. Mr. Duggan, please to reception, job centre on the phone for you. Mr. Duggan to reception, job centre on the phone for you. And I used to go to the thing and they say, hi, right. And they used to give me a list of names saying, oh, did Fred Bloggs come for an interview today? Did Martha Bloggs? You know, and I'd say, no, or yes, that person's been employed. It was nonsense. It's nonsense now, you know. Nobody can be bothered to do interviews now. It's, oh, fill out the form online, answer the aptitude test online, and then if you pass, we'll get back to you. But they never do because the managers are total wankers that can't even do the job. I've got a YouTuber in India, and he's struggling to get he spends hours making videos, editing them, posting them to YouTube, and then he struggles to get 200 views. And then I've got another guy in Afghanistan who gets 90,000 views in an hour. Well, we know that's fake, and we know that's robot views. You get the guy I said struggling to get 200 views. He gets hundreds of people chasing him down the street to be in the video, but then when he posts the video, no one's viewing it. It's absolutely hilarious. If you guys download the new Threads and then post the thread, I'll come on it and I'll rethread it. Because as soon as I comment on one of your posts, it gets rethreaded. Better than me. Wasn't me. It was the bed. all I see now with this new Threads from Instagram is a bunch of women and silly little girls that are very sad and very lonely in life. I don't see men posting to Threads. All I see is very sad teens posting for attention. I don't see any men posts. It's all fake pictures of little girlies or prostitutes just trying to whore themselves. Instead of working a job through uni, they just whore themselves out on Instagram. It's absolutely hilarious. I've gone through thousands of threads since I've been up at 9 o'clock, and all I see is women. All it is women. Pardon me. It's nonsense. And then you can tell the pictures are fake, so it's not even thing, you know? Give me a minute, guys. What we do? an hour I've been here now. Not one person's come into the room. Are dreams just memories that we've forgotten about because we were drunk at the time? So this is your subconscious telling you your past. it's funny how all these women are failing now. It's absolutely hilarious. Years ago they had 1 million likes of the photo. Now they're getting nothing. It's absolutely hilarious. You know, the funny thing about threads is they all post let's gain, let's gain, let's gain, but then they follow nobody. They want everyone to follow them, but they don't want to follow anyone back. It's absolutely hilarious. I remember when social media started 20 years ago, it was about making new friends from all over the world. Now it's just let's tear each other to pieces and not help each other. I'm telling you, people are hilarious. You know, I remember I used to go to the Philippines, and I used to say to them all, you just failed kids that never grow up, because they're like 40, 50-year old, and they're still living in the parents' house. It's absolutely hilarious. Over an hour I've been here now, and not one of you have come into the room. It's hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. I think I think lockdown fried all your brains. It really did. I am once again asking for someone to help me in math. People out here saying I love you with no meaning behind it. This is the threads I get on my Threads account. Because it's all public. When you post to Threads, it goes public. So it goes to basically 29 million people daily. And then if someone like me comes along and rethreads you because there's spam on your post, it gets rethreaded again. This is hilarious.
أكون شخصية كلش أمور عامة بس بما إنه من يختنق وكل شي يصيبني ولازم أحكي قررت إنه أنا أحكي بالكاميرا. ويا الحاجة شوف هم ما يضربون بالناس الثاني لما ركبوا يرجعون يضربون بالناس ركبوا ويا الحاجة. متظاهرة أو الزائرة طيبة فعلا مواليد 2000 من بغداد صار لي حوالي 55 يوم بساحة التحرير. لا عندك لا اسمع تمام مفروض لا عندك يلا مو مثل يلا انا وهناك يعني عبارة عن مأساة وقتل وجثث. هي إن شاء الله تطلع فيها وراها بدأت 2009 وفوق بدأت لأنه بالليل أكو ناس يحتاجون علاج وإسعافات لازم نساعدهم. لذلك أنا أبات بخيمتي، خيمتي هي بيتي. الموضوع هو يعني معقد بس أنا خليني أتزوج عمر 14. بالتالي ترجع ظروف المجتمع وظروف القانون اللي ما بعد قانون العنف الأسري. الموضوع كل شيء يعني يتصدر يعني خاصة طفل يعني طفل عمره 14 سنة تفكر إنه خلاص أنا راح أهرب من العنف. بديت يعني أجرب أعيش حياة ثانية. بعدين تنصدم إنه اللي تزوجته هو الإنسان يعني يبي يجي الإنسان غيره. أنا درست الحكي إذا اختاريت إنه أني أنفصل قبل ما يصير إنه التطبيق وقبل ما يصير ارتباط وقبل ما إنه أني أحطم باقي حياتي. صار الانفصال صعب لأنه هو كان رافض الانفصال يعني بس أنا أصريت على الموضوع. هو اللي أنا عشتها بحياتي السيئة.
In the early stages of prostate cancer.
Examples that I gave were examples where eventually, for the Russians in particular, they can to rely on
Bless me.
So I think you will need a lot of for the Israelis, to understand that if they go in, they're going to have to take a lot of casualties, and that is also something that is going to be difficult to say domestically. But if they do not go in, it's also very difficult. So I think that the situation is possible to bring a bit of a standby. But if I would have to make a bet, my bet is that probably they will find a way.
The question, of course, that many people ask, we'll have to leave it after I ask you this question, we're running a bit out of time, is how...
To help them.
You know, lockdown has destroyed the world now. People are still working from home. They're still, instead of getting people into the studio, they're now doing live video calls instead. Really is so sad.
Movies overall great.
Going to meet Mahmoud Abbas as well, and he's going to talk to Arab leaders as well in the next couple of days. So this is going to be a long conflict, and I think the president is sort of positioning France as a key interlocutor in the region to prepare.
Yes, and we know killed in this conflict 6 were missing. We'll keep you up to date with the very latest from the hostage situation. But we are delighted to be joined in the studio by our senior political commentator Nigel Nelson and political commentator and author Tonya Buxton to discuss this more. You heard in our bulletins, Tonya, this very elderly lady who was captured by Hamas.
Or in Chechnya, for example, the Russians succeeded in
Behind him, that was
Hamas took an 89-year-old woman captive.
وتقعدوا يا شباب ما تعرفون شباب الثورة عرفتنا عليكم. ليش أنا ما أعيش مثل باقي الدول؟ يعني هسه بغير دولة يقولون لي هاي القادة، ليش أنا هاي القادة حرام علي؟ ليش أنا هذا الطلعة والضحكة والونسة حرام علي؟ أنا أريد أعيش بكرامة مثل باقي الناس، أريد حق.
احنا مقصدنا هو اشراف النظام، مو مقصدنا يعني مقصد حكومه او المطالب، لان اصبح المطلب معروف لدى الجميع. اذا كانت هذه المطالب
يعني ما أبي أي مرة حد يقول لنا لا أحنا إنه هو عندكم
شغل المحتوى راح يصير
يوم صار 3 أشهر و20 يوم للثورة قبل. احنا معتصمين وصلنا هواية ذبحة وصلنا هواية شهداء وهواية معتقلين عندنا مختطفين من عرف مصرهم. وإذا أنا راح يصير أكو تصعيد هو التسويق بالخط، لكن التصعيد هو طبعا الطرق الرئيسية. طيب بس قلت إياها بالخط قل إياها. يوم واحد يفصلنا عن واحد عشرة. يوم واحد بس يفصلنا عن واحد عشرة. ساعة قبل كل فيديوهات أحس إني عشنا. مرة أحس بفخر كلش كبير إنه أنا حاولت أقول كلش كبير. شو يعني إنه أنت تتذكر أشخاص قبل فترة ضحكت فيهم وصدفت يوم كنت فيهم بس واحد يبقى بقى وبنموت أبدا بنموت ننتصر بسلمية. As the situation was really important to hear a voice say, not in our name, we don't believe that this kind of aggression is due to which is a
Our planet is burning and we're running out of time. Why aren't we doing more to get our climate change? Are American politics just getting too polarized and too extreme for most Americans? Let's take a look at U.S. politics. The bottom line.
State propaganda, media censorship, and the rise of authoritarian rule.
Why not one today? Consistent. Into a competitive authoritarian.
A look at the loss of power in our area and the experiences of those who live it every day.
Shut up.
in Asia and Africa, there'd be days where I'd be shooting and editing my own stories in a refugee camp with no electricity. And right now, we're confronting some of the greatest challenges that humanity's ever faced, and I really believe that the only way we can do that is with compassion and generosity and compromise. Because that's the only way we can try and solve any of these problems, is together. That's why Al Jazeera is so important. We make those connections. Agencies calling for a massive increase in aid into Gaza. Few truckloads of supplies allowed in so far are distributed. And the ongoing Hamas releases 2 elderly Israeli captives for humanitarian reasons after mediation by Qatar and Egypt. Well, it is now 10 GMT, that's 1 p.m. in Gaza, where there has been no let-up in Israel's bombing campaign, and the humanitarian crisis is growing by the minute. In central Gaza, Israeli airstrikes have targeted a market in the Nusayrat refugee camp. It is the only market relied on to provide its supplies. In the north, power has now been restored to the Indonesian capital. After running out of fuel, the ministry has also said it will walk back the house imminent. Palestinians are Palestinians have been killed in Gaza. In the occupied West Bank, Israeli forces have killed 96 Palestinians over the past 2 weeks. And in Israel, the government says more than 1,400 Israelis were killed in the Nasser military operation. Well, we have 2
elections over the last 17 days. Talk us through how the most recent bombardments have been going there.
Well, as the bombardment has been relentless in Gaza City and in the north, and considering that this is the largest hospital and most hospitals here in the Gaza Strip in the north in Gaza City have completely shut down and stopped operating. All the injuries and casualties are coming here to Shifa Hospital, which makes it very difficult for this hospital to continue running on very little amount of fuel that it was able to get from private sectors and other people who actually gave them the little amount of fuel.
They're still crying that Gaza's got no fuel when we know full well it has.
In some of the departments to continue these departments in running, while the director of the hospital was telling me that over 130 babies in the incubators are threatened.
130 babies in incubators in Gaza hospitals.
While over 120 patients are in the ICU unit and need also instant fuel to keep the ICU unit running.
Well,
Now,
my question is exactly the same as Ukraine. Why would you have babies in a war zone? So they've got no one to blame but themselves. You know, if you know that your home's going to be bombed, why the hell would you get pregnant and have a baby and bring a child into a war zone? You know, they expect sympathy from the world, but there's billions of people around the world all asking the same question. It's exactly the same in Ukraine. Why would you have a baby knowing you can't afford to support a child because there's no jobs, no income? So why would you bring a baby into the world? Because everyone's going to be asking the same question. You know, they're trying for this sympathy vote, and the world's going to say, "Well, tough. You know you were in a war zone. You knew there was no jobs. You know there's no economy. So why the hell would you bring a child into this?" You know, they're absolutely hilarious.
Well, what we have heard from the Red Cross just now, Nastasia, is that they got all the medical aid trucks that were sent and they distributed them on the Ministry of Health, which distributed them in turn to other hospitals.
Mum,
At Shifa Hospital.
clean your room.
We see
Me,
the situation is
it's my room.
hospital
Mum,
not distributing
it's my house.
to these
Me, then go clean it. Oh, brilliant. I'll have to remember that one.
Very great. Yumna outside there in Gaza City in the north of the Gaza Strip. Thank you so much, Yumna, and please stay safe. Well, let's now speak to Hani Abu Sheba. He joins us from
I've just posted a thread on Mark Zuckerberg's Threads account, the owner and founder of Facebook, asking him why he's failed so bad and why he's destroyed the world so fast.
Shelling for the past 45 minutes, destroying more residential homes, public facilities, as well as infrastructure, making it hard for people. And as we speak now, there is an airstrike close by the hospital vicinity. And the city of Khan Yunis as well, within the past 45 minutes, across from the Palestinian Red Crescent Society building, a house belongs to Abu Amir family, was targeted and destroyed. What's sad about this, the house accommodated more than 50 evacuees from Gaza City and the northern part. It
3 of those who were pronounced killed right at the spot been identified as Abu Amr family members. There are still more people under the rubble. We've seen the worst of these videos and photos where an entire 3-story building came down on while people were still inside. Those buildings were targeted without a warning. There is a very difficult. It's very hard for rescue teams and civil defense personnel to rescue people from under the rubble. Keep in mind, they don't have the necessary equipment and heavy machinery to help them remove the rubble. So with that being said, we are expecting the number to rise in the coming few hours. Well, the scene in the hospital for the past few minutes was horrific as remaining family members rushed to the hospital to check on those who were rushed here. It was full of tears and sadness as mothers of those 3 were identified from one family cried frantically about her son.
Honey, we've seen so many tears and so much death over the last couple of weeks. Let me ask you about something that Yumna alluded to. She was saying that some of the medical supplies that have come in on the aid trucks have been distributed by the health ministry to hospitals. Where is the other aid going? I know some of it was meant for Khan Yunis.
Yes, we know so far that the aid are limited to the southern part of Gaza, and we learned from a source that none of these aid is going to make it to Gaza City, particularly Shifa Hospital in dire needs of medical supplies. I mean, there is hope that some of these supplies will make it, but there's also fear that it will be excluded. And if that happens, then we are headed toward a real catastrophe as the Shifa Hospital, without fuel, without medical supplies, will just turn into a large morgue. None of the immediate medical intervention will take place. It's already having a problem giving the services needed, the necessary services needed. Now, in the southern part, we know the United Nations it has a list and it classifies some of these aid priorities are given to UNRWA schools, where thousands of Palestinians are taking these schools as shelters. They need food supplies. Food supplies are running very short, and people stand for hours in front of bakeries just to get one pack of bread.
Hani Abu Sheba there with that live report for us from Khan Yunis in the southern Gaza Strip. Thank you, Hani. Well, Israel's bombardment has completely destroyed entire neighborhoods in Gaza. One of those areas is Al-Zahra, which once had 22 residential blocks. Many of them had been leveled during 17 days of Israeli bombing. These are satellite images obtained by Al Jazeera. Palestinian journalist Matthias Al-Azaiza has been documenting the destruction. He sent us this report.
Oh, I'm gonna have to turn the computer on once I've finished on Threads and let you see it. Gaza is now looking like a pancake.
Entire families were displaced, and there were many human casualties as well. I don't know where the people will go or if there's a shelter for them. Each residential building had about 60 families.
On Monday evening, the armed wing of Hamas released 2 elderly Israeli captives for what it says was humanitarian reasons. This release followed mediation efforts from Qatar and Egypt. Sarah Kairos has more from Occupied East Jerusalem.
It's the moment their families have been waiting for. Hamas's release of 2 elderly women held captive for more than 2 weeks. Their husbands, though, remain behind in Gaza, where Israeli airstrikes is killing dozens of people every day.
We're very emotional and happy that my grandmother Yocheved Lifshitz and Nurit Cooper, both from the kibbutz near Oz, is coming back to us in a real humanitarian move. We're expecting the rest to be released, all hostages from the kibbutz, all hostages in general.
Hamas maintains it's treating its
What is a kibbutz?
guests and is willing to release them without conditions, but says Israel hasn't accepted.
We have shared on Friday that we were ready to release two and another two Israelis women. At that time, the Americans accepted to have those two women back. The Israelis rejected that. Prime Minister Netanyahu rejected that.
Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, though, rejected this claim by saying the army and security forces have been active for days in getting the captives released. Earlier this week, he said there would be no negotiations with Hamas. Qatar, Egypt, and the US have been working together as mediators behind the scenes. And shortly after the ground entered Egypt through the Rafah crossing from Gaza, intense Israeli airstrikes resumed. The heavy bombing of Gaza from the air hasn't stopped since October 7, and promises of a ground invasion that hasn't materialized yet has left many Israelis searching for answers from their government and questioning whether the captives will ever make it out of Gaza alive. The arrival of the grandmothers in Israel is likely to give desperate families hope to be reunited again with their loved ones. And in Gaza, people hope for a respite from what is the worst bombing they have ever seen. Sarah Khairat, Al Jazeera, occupied East Jerusalem.
Well, let's now speak to Alan Fisher. He's been following this for us from occupied East Jerusalem. Alan, these two captives that were released last night, one of them has just held a press conference in the last hour or so. Can you tell us a little bit more about what she said?
Yeah, Yocheved Lipschitz was captured on the Saturday when Hamas came over the border fence. She's 85 years old. She said she was initially taken by someone on a motorbike and they raced towards the field. She described the feeling as flying towards the tunnels in Gaza. She said she was beaten when she was on the back of the motorbike and her jewelry and her watch was taken. As they got into Gaza, she said that they entered a tunnel taken by the motorbike into the tunnels and then led through a series of tunnels to a much larger hall underground where there was about 25 people. She said at that point, as they were met by a doctor who examined them, she said that felt as if they knew that this was going to happen. They split everyone up at that point. They were separated. But she said over the time she was there, she got visited by doctors.
Okay, this is what the 89-year-old woman is saying. She was abducted by a motorbike. The motorbike then went back into Gaza. The motorbike then entered the tunnel. The tunnel led to a large room where 25 people were held in a tunnel or room underground. They were then split into different areas. This is what the 89-year-old, she was beaten on the back of a motorbike. Hey guys. The 89-year-old that was kidnapped from Israel was kidnapped by motorbike. She was then beaten on the back of the motorbike. Don't know how that worked. The motorbike then entered the tunnel. The tunnel led to a large room where 25 people were held captive and then they were split up. They were then examined by a doctor. Sorry, before they were split up, they were all examined by a doctor and then they were all split up. Hamas is willing to release 50 more hostages, but Israel is refusing to take them.
situation so that the people who are being held captive can be released, how there can be no de-escalation in the war, how aid can get in, and how they can move towards a two-state solution. And he's got that conversation still to have with the president of the Palestinian Authority in Ramallah in the coming hours.
And we'll be following that visit here for you on Al Jazeera. Alan Fisher there for us, and Occupied East Jerusalem. Thank you, Alan. Well, let's bring in Abdullah Al-Arian. He's an associate professor of Middle East history at Georgetown University in Qatar. Abdullah, we know there's been a steady stream of world leaders heading to the region. I'm curious about what you think their priorities are.
Well, it seems to be, so far at least, that the priority has been to demonstrate unequivocal support for Israel's campaign against the Palestinians. And I think that's been really the most unfortunate thing that we've seen from world leaders, in particular at a time when the humanitarian catastrophe continues to unfold and gets compounded. I mean, we just saw this report coming in about a bombing of a market in the middle of the day, the last possible source of food for many Palestinians. Right, exactly. And so we're seeing, so much of this horrific humanitarian catastrophe unfolding with a sort of willful blindness or kind of inability to offer anything in terms of restraint on the part of what Israel is doing.
Over the last few hours, Abdullah, you and I have been talking about a lack of robust solidarity with
I'll be back. Just turn the TV around. Not TV, the thingy around.
So this is very much a government body that is wholeheartedly a part and parcel of Israeli occupation, that most of its responsibilities involve providing security for Israel. It arrests routinely Palestinians, and it is there essentially as a kind of an outsourced body for the Israeli occupation.
What's the telling?
The 1967 occupation of the entire West Bank and Gaza. And so in that sense, it is a body that has lost legitimacy in recent years, in particular due to the many human rights abuses that it itself practices against other Palestinians, and the fact that it has done virtually nothing to address the actual crisis, right? The inability of Palestinians to win any kind of a statehood or bring about any of the promises, certainly, of what that peace process was meant to achieve. And so in that sense, there's been a crisis of legitimacy. There haven't been elections in over a decade. And so Abbas, of course, has been very much a lame duck president of this Palestinian Authority for this entire time. And of course, now they sit back and watch as this horrific situation unfolds both in Gaza and even, of course, as we know, within the West Bank, with very limited or kind of inability to do anything to address it.
Have you noticed a shift in tone from the Palestinian Authority? And obviously, Abbas has now met with two Western leaders by the end of today in Ramallah, and has spoken to a number of others.
Yeah, so I mean, the message has certainly shifted in line with where I think the broader Palestinian population is, which is very much standing in solidarity with the people, especially in Gaza, but also with the idea that something has to change, something in terms of the relationship between Israel and the Palestinian population that currently finds itself under occupation is simply unsustainable for the long term. And so whereas for the Palestinian Authority, it was sort of continuing business as usual year after year.
I'll be back.
Now for the first time, we're hearing that things have to change and they simply can't be sustained any further. Now, what that looks like is still very much an open question. We know that the PA relies so much on Western support that a lot of the hundreds of millions of dollars that are meant to sustain the security forces of the PA are still very much part of how.
Abdullah Al-Arian, an associate professor of Middle East history. Thanks for joining us again in studio. Meanwhile, there's been another night of arrests in Israeli raids across the occupied West Bank. Let's now speak to Nida Ibrahim. She joins us from the ground there in Ramallah. Nida, we were speaking earlier. There has also, I understand, been the death of a prisoner in Israeli custody. Can you tell us more?
Yes, Palestinian families have been telling us that they were already worried about the conditions of their children in Israeli jails, specifically that they were hearing that there's no electricity, limited water for the prisoners, as well as other punitive measures taken by the Israeli prison service. But now they believe that they have more reasons to worry with the news of the death of the prisoner, Omar Daragme, a 58-year-old who has been declared dead by the prison service. Yesterday, they were saying that he had some sort of a medical condition. Now, according to his lawyer, he says he was able to talk to him because he was on trial, and at this time, this is the only chance that lawyers now are having to talk with their people that they're talking with and defending, really. So he said that he was in a good condition. He asked Omar about his health, and Omar replied that he was in a good condition. That's why Palestinian families are telling us that they are worried that more and more Palestinians are going to be losing their lives in prison, because also they've been seeing pictures of Palestinians who have been imprisoned, and when they were released, they saw that the signs of beating, the bruises, the pain that these prisoners were talking about. So there's a lot of tension and fear about the conditions of those prisoners now.
Nida, we know the arrests have been escalating. Israel is saying that these are members of Hamas, including some...
Right, what did I miss?
They say that they are targeting, basically, Hamas people in the occupied West Bank. We've been speaking to them.
They're targeting Hamas. Yeah, like hell yeah. They just want to completely flatten Gaza and the West Bank.
But when we talk about Omar Dahomey, the person who died in Israeli custody, he is a Hamas member. He has been, basically Hamas has mourned his death, saying that he's a leader. So all in all, we're talking about the numbers of those detained in Israeli prisons increased drastically. Now we have more than 1,200 Palestinians who have been arrested since October 7th.
Nida Ibrahim there with that report from Ramallah and the occupied West Bank. Thank you, Nida. Well, the Emir of Qatar
Hope you can see that.
will not be given a green light for unconditional killing in Gaza. Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani says that the fighting between Israel and Hamas is a dangerous escalation that threatens not only the region but the world.
We say enough. Israel cannot be given the green light or carte blanche for killing, nor should the occupation, unjust siege, or illegal settlements be ignored. At this time in history...
Oh, it's going to be some really good video today. Well,
We're calling for the regional and international community to take a stand amid this grave escalation, which undermines peace and security not only in the region but in the whole world. We call for an immediate end to this war that has gone beyond
who's this?
all limits.
Thousands of Israelis have been evacuated from the border with Gaza as Israel's military bombardment continues. Israeli forces have also been massing there ahead of a potential ground invasion. Joy Zabon reports from Eilat in southern Israel.
Clothes and other items for Israelis who had to flee their homes close to the border with Gaza. Thousands have come here to the city of Eilat in southern Israel to escape the war. Angel Oppenheim works in a diving center nearby and is now a volunteer in this distribution center.
Everyone here are working for free and get no money, 14 hours a day. Everything is a donation. The government didn't get this money for anyone. This situation was not supposed to happen. From the beginning, I didn't believe in the government.
Eilat is on the shores of the Red Sea, a tourist destination that is now providing shelter to people from the communities affected by Hamas' October 7 attacks in Israel. Hotels here are working at full capacity. The government says that more than 200,000 people have been told to leave their homes across Israel, and there won't be enough homes for everyone if the ground invasion worsens the situation.
Eilat is overwhelmed with people evacuated from other parts of the country. That's why the local government is setting up a plan to build a tent city for 60,000 people. This would be one of the locations that would have a medical facility, but also a school in case the conflict continues to escalate.
Yeiush Kila came from Mushat Puma, near the border from Gaza. She says Palestinian fighters did not enter her community because they were stopped at the entrance. She's now here trying to help children cope with trauma.
I came here to feel that I do something for someone else. I feel like because it's all the time, all day, look at the TV and the news and Instagram and all this, and I want to feel that I do something. because we need to continue. I don't know how, but we need to continue.
Just like millions of people, she was deeply shaken by the attacks more than 2 weeks ago.
I want to live in peace. I believe in the fact of living in peace, but now I don't know if it's possible because I feel it's like it's us or them. And so I don't know what's good, but something needs to change, you know.
Israel has already moved hundreds of thousands of soldiers and hundreds of tanks to the border with Gaza ahead of a planned ground invasion. People here say they don't know why that's not happened yet. They're getting ready for the next stage of the war. Elisa Al Jazeera, Eilat, southern Israel.
Families living in southern Lebanon say that the region of Israel is becoming a war zone. Fighting is escalating between the Israeli army and the Iranian-backed armed group Hezbollah. Ali Hashim sent us this report from southern Lebanon.
The sounds of war. Only a few people are left in this border village. The pictures of commanders now dead give testament to previous wars here. Maher is a retired military officer and has witnessed several conflicts. He says he has many reasons to stay. This is my land. I was born here. I won't leave it whatever happens. I lived through many wars. My family is in Beirut, but I'm not leaving. Umfad is 80 years old. She lives with her husband, who's unwell. She says they don't have the energy to leave.
Where am I to go? My sick husband is inside our home with me.
Along the 120 kilometers of border between Lebanon and Israel, there's nowhere for people to take proper shelter in an attack. No warning silence.
What government do we have? There is none. They only know how to rule the country. We are left alone as always.
Much like the few people left here, these sheep make use of the fleeting moments they get each day to venture out and find food. Between one exchange of fire and another, a tense calm allows people left in the border towns to move out. But then, the sound of drums breaks the silence. They signal another round of bombing. Powerless in the center of an unpredictable conflict, people here can only hope it will end soon. Ali Hashim, Al Jazeera, South Lebanon.
Well, let's bring in Andreas Krieg. He's a senior lecturer in security studies at King's College London. He joins us now from there. Andreas, given what we're seeing on that border with Lebanon, what do you make of the threat of escalation? Do you think it hinges on if or perhaps when there'll be a ground invasion?
Yes, I mean, it is all about a when rather than an if. I can't see how Israel, with all the rhetoric, all the pressures as well on the government to take, hold Hamas to account, that they would allow this to just go, this opportunity go to waste. And we're seeing that the IDF is already fairly nervous that time is working against them, and they're already saying and pushing. Saying, why are we not going in? Why are we wasting time? There is a lot of factors for that. One is obviously the US wants to get ready. Everyone is feeling that also on the northern border, it could very easily escalate, and the US would then be dragged indirectly into a war that they have so far unequivocally supported, and it is already being dragged in overnight in Iraq, where US interests and US forces were attacked by Iranian proxies. So we're right on the knife's edge of a situation that could easily escalate. So there's a lot of considerations to take into account. This is not just the operational considerations of the IDF, but the piece of the wider region.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about those considerations, because US media, I understand, are reporting that the State Department is now drawing up contingency plans to evacuate hundreds of thousands of its citizens in the region if this war in Gaza escalates.
Who's going to evacuate? I don't know if you heard that. 600,000 US citizens are being told to get ready for evacuation. This is a mess, guys.
When we spoke yesterday, we discussed the speculation that the US wants this ground offensive delayed partly so it can prepare itself for potential proxy conflicts. That presumably also means making these sorts of evacuation plans. What sort of scale are we talking?
So far, it's on a fairly low scale in terms of where we are in Gaza, and the US wants to retain it that way. Also, if you look at the US forces in the Eastern Mediterranean and around, the Levant, it is fairly limited. Most of their forces are deployed in the Gulf, which are fairly far away. But if we look at the escalation of where it could go, and obviously the US would have to support it. My guess is if Israel gets dragged into a very messy ground offensive on the ground in Gaza, and then a second front will open up.
Hold on, let me turn this up.
Eventually, I think Israel will have to be forced to some sort of standstill. I don't think they can retain and support a two-front war for an indefinite period of time. And then we might see the US being dragged in trying to provide support, providing intelligence, potentially getting involved in targeting. So it's a slippery slope where over time we might see US targets then elsewhere in the region to become legitimate targets for Iranian proxies and their militia forces. And let's not forget there are quite a lot of troops in the Gulf, and Iran is right on the doorstep. So we're at a war game now where by iteration after iteration we could see an escalation if diplomacy does not win. And I think we're now at a point where when it comes to negotiating over hostages, which should be a primary concern, is there is a window where we could, over time, get these hostages released rather than sacrificing them for a war effort that I think will not generate any strategic returns for Israel.
Andreas Krieger, a senior lecturer in security studies at King's College London. Always great to get your thoughts and expertise on Al Jazeera. Andreas, thanks for joining us again.
Thank you.
Well, still ahead here on Al Jazeera. Diplomatic fault lines exposed at the UN as a renewed resolution is presented by the United States.
We still have many warnings in force for heavy rain across western parts of Europe. Still a fair bit of cloud rolling through here. But things turning a little more mobile as we go on through the next couple of days. We have got clearer skies down towards the southeast in particular. A little bit of wet weather, wintry weather too, towards the eastern side of Europe. It's cold, it's dry across a good part of Scandinavia. But back over towards the west, this is where we've got this myriad of weather systems making their way from west to east. So some heavier bursts of rain coming into Portugal, some rain there into France, heavier rain pushing across the southeast of France towards the Alpine region, slightly into northern areas of Italy. We do still have warnings in force for the time being into that eastern side of England, either side of the Humber. There's some wet and windy weather into the North Sea. So it is making its way further east, so we'll see cloud and rain replacing the sunshine across the eastern parts of Europe. Some heavier rain gradually pushing towards Greece by Wednesday afternoon. You notice it stays dry and cold up towards all parts of Scandinavia. It stays dry and warm down towards the southeast. That warm sunshine stretching there.
Well, it's here, guys. Hell is finally here. The gates of hell are just about to open. And you've only brought it on yourself. You've got no one to blame but yourself.
A weekly look at the world's top business stories, from global markets to economies and small businesses.
Worsening food insecurity around the world. Is there something that the international community, in your view, should be doing
to understand how it affects our daily lives? Counting the cost on Al Jazeera.
As the situation in Gaza escalates, we bring you expert views and analysis.
His entire neighborhoods in Gaza City wiped off the map. We're watching one of the greatest diplomatic failures and atrocities unfold.
In my lifetime, I've not seen anything like this. The basic premise.
I've never seen anything like this in my life either. I've never seen Israel and Gaza get this out of control. This is nuts now.
Stay with us for the latest developments on Al Jazeera.
Welcome back. You're watching Al Jazeera. Let's remind you about top stories this hour. More than 5,000 Palestinians have now been killed in 5,087 Palestinians killed in Gaza.
96 killed in occupied West Bank, 1,405 Israeli killed by Hamas.
And arrests have spiked in the occupied West Bank. More than 1,300 Palestinians have been detained there.
1,300 occupied West Bank arrests. 222 held captive in Gaza. Welcome to hell on earth, and it's going to come to your doorstep very soon. To your town and villages.
There are two new points to this U.S. resolution that will go to the Security Council. I want to point them out. Number one is it calls for all measures necessary, such as a humanitarian pause, to allow for full and rapid.
Enjoy Halloween, guys, because it could be at last.
Humanitarian pause. Previously, the U.S. had not agreed to that. In fact, the U.S. vetoed a Brazil resolution that called for a humanitarian pause just last week. Also in the new version and final version of the U.S. draft, it says any movement of people must be voluntary. This is new as well. This goes to the fact that Israel...
U.S. resolution calls for all measures necessary, such as humanitarian pauses, for access to aid.
Must be voluntary.
Now the US is starting to put the foot down.
On this resolution
Israel are about to lose all their friends.
Perhaps even Wednesday or Thursday. The reason we're thinking is because Antony Blinken, the Secretary of State, is planning to be at the UN Tuesday. It's perhaps because he wants more time to try to convince other member states to support the US resolution. Gabriel Ozondo, Al Jazeera, New York.
Well, meanwhile, Washington has accused Iran of actively facilitating attacks on U.S. forces in the Middle East.
Raymond Duggan News,
Iran's foreign minister says
live from Immingham, England, UK.
Security establishment is directing the war in occupied Palestine. The Zionist regime is suffering internal collapse. I talked to Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov, and we are consulting with China as well, that a resolution against the interests of Palestinians will not be adopted at the UN Security Council. Palestinian resistance groups say they're ready for a long military conflict. They said Israel targets civilians, including women and children. The US has sent messages to Lebanon's Hezbollah asking not to open a new front in the conflict. We've received messages asking us to practice restraint and also asked us to invite others to show restraint, but the US over the past 2 weeks has been sending military equipment to Israel. So how can they say they don't want the expansion of war? Now I'm saying to Biden, stop your hypocrisy.
Well, China has called for an international conference to discuss the conflict in Gaza. Foreign Minister Wang Yi held phone calls with the foreign ministers of both Palestine and Israel. He says China is worried by the escalation and is calling for a two-state solution to the crisis. Katrina Yu has more from the Chinese capital.
We've seen this past year Beijing looking to play more of a role as an international mediator. That's what Foreign Minister Wang Yi seems to be doing here. He urged both sides for an immediate de-escalation. China is very worried that this war is going to spill out into a wider conflict. So on Monday, he made two separate phone calls to the Foreign Minister of the Palestinian Authority and Israel's Foreign Minister. Now, speaking to Riyad al-Maliki, he said that Beijing deeply sympathizes with the difficulties of the Palestinian people. He's condemned attack on civilians. He said that China is going to continue to provide humanitarian aid. And he says what Palestine needs now is security, food and medicine, and not war, weapons and ammunition. Now, in a separate phone call to Israeli Foreign Minister Eli Cohen, he said that while every country has the right to self-defense, he urged Israel to do what it can to protect civilians. He said that Tel Aviv has a choice between war and peace, and it's imperative that it must do everything it can to prevent the situation spiraling into an even further humanitarian catastrophe. Now, these two phone calls are the highest level communication that Beijing has had with either government since the war began.
Well, let's bring in Abdullah Al-Arian once again to discuss this push from the international community to try to de-escalate. He's an associate professor of Middle East history at Georgetown University, Qatar. Abdullah, we've now had talk of a potential two-state solution from three countries just in the last 24 hours, the UK, France and China now too. Is there the space for a potential push here for some kind of peace process?
Well, certainly nothing before the ending of the current crisis. And so again, I mean, these are long-term ideas that have already been kind of thoroughly discredited if we're really looking at the legacy of a 30-year peace process that failed to deliver. In fact, in that time, all we've seen is the mass appropriation of Palestinian territory by Israel that is de facto annexed, essentially, in which Palestinians live in an apartheid system in which they're discriminated against. They've lost all of their rights under the system. And so there really isn't any talk of any kind of a two-state solution. And in fact, what we're really seeing is that it's acting as a distraction for the ongoing bombardment of Gaza, the killings of very high numbers of Palestinian civilians. And so in that sense, any discussion right now has to focus on the immediate term, which is to end the bombing, to end the blockade, to allow for Palestinians to pick up the pieces of their lives under this kind of threat of mass expulsion and genocide that we've seen coming from Israeli leaders over the last few weeks.
Well, in terms of the moves around diplomacy to end this conflict, as you say, before moving on to a longer-term peace plan, have you noticed any divisions or differences in approach between, say, Western countries and developing world countries?
Yeah, I mean, this has been one interesting thing to keep an eye on. I think, again, if we take the last 3 decades as being an indication, we've seen that this question of the two-state solution, so to speak, has very much been the domain of the United States. So it's had kind of a free hand to approach the question of Palestine in any way that it sees fit. We've seen, obviously, the devastating consequences that this has had on the Palestinians in particular. And now, for the first time, we're starting to see broader engagement. And again, this, I think, is part of a bigger conversation about the idea that the U.S. may not have necessarily as much of a free hand going forward, in particular as we start to see countries like Russia and like China that are trying to assert themselves, as we've seen in many other parts of the world. And so it's still an open question about whether that will translate over into what we would like to see, which is an immediate ceasefire and end to the bombing. And so certainly we've seen that in some of the UN Security Council resolutions. The U.S. has now used its veto twice to stop the ending of the bombing. And so in that sense, I think this is still very much something that is going to be disputed and competed over within these kinds of bodies. And we haven't seen really any major shift as of yet.
Well, we'll get another look at the dynamics of the Security Council in the coming hours and days. Before I let you go, I want to ask you briefly, because we've been hearing this escalating rhetoric from both the US and from Iran. What's your read of the level of tension between Washington and Tehran at the moment?
Well, it certainly seems quite high in terms of the words that are being spoken on the part of leaders from both countries. I think, again, a lot of it really shifts back to Gaza, whether there's going to be an Israeli ground invasion. Because I think the expectation is that despite all of the horrific scenes that we've seen coming out of Gaza in the last 2.5 weeks, that a ground invasion will be even more devastating from just a purely humanitarian standpoint. And so whether that causes an escalation that would see the intervention of other outside actors, we know, of course, that the United States is certainly mobilizing in that degree. They've been very public about what they're doing in terms of relocating many of their forces into the region. And Iran, of course, has been very vocal in terms of the idea that they want to prevent any more of this violence kind of spilling over, but also potentially intervening in places like southern Lebanon as well. So I think this is still very much something that has a cause for concern for everyone.
Abdullah Al-Arian there once more joining us from Georgetown University here in Qatar. Thank you, Abdullah. Well, still ahead here on Al Jazeera. We'll be live from The Hague, and we'll also show you the subterranean spaces where Ukrainian civilians are sheltering from the war.
Business Latest is sponsored by Interlac, Turkey's real estate consultant. Business Latest is sponsored by Interlac, Turkey's real estate consultant.
Welcome back. Well, turning our attention now to some of the day's other news from around the world. And at least 23 people have been killed in Democratic Republic of Congo in an attack by an armed group there. It happened in the town of Oicha, near the border with Uganda, where the Allied Democratic Forces is based. The Congolese military said many other people were also kidnapped, but it's working to free them. The town has come under repeated attack in recent years by fighters linked to ISIL. A group of Iraqi civilians are suing the Dutch government for injuries that they and their families suffered after an airstrike on the town of Hawija in 2015. At least 85 people were killed and hundreds of homes destroyed. Hawija at the time was under ISIL occupation. Dutch fighter jets bombed a location which was believed to be an ISIL weapons factory. Well, our correspondent Steph Basson joins us now from The Hague. Steph, I understand 6 victims of this bombardment have travelled from Iraq to The Hague to be there at this court hearing. What are they asking for from the Dutch state?
They finally want the Dutch state to tell the truth and stop denying its responsibility. It wants the Dutch state to be held accountable for what they call an unacceptable risk they took when the military bombed Hawija. What the Dutch military was doing was bombing a bomb factory run by Islamic State. But there was an enormous explosion afterwards, immediately afterwards, and that killed at least 85 people, but some sources say a lot more were killed. So 6 Iraqis have now traveled from Iraq carrying pictures of their children. One family lost all their 5 children. Many families they all died. So it was an enormous tragedy, and the Dutch state has so far always denied its responsibility. It said it was a legitimate attack because they had this target, but the lawyer says it's a war crime because they should have known that so many civilians were in that area. And this is not only an important case for the Dutch state, but also for the international coalition that fought against ISIS, because this is the first time a court will give a verdict about if these airstrikes are legitimate and if there are so many civilians in this area, if it's an acceptable risk. And this is, of course, something that's very relevant today if we're looking at what's happening in Gaza.
Of course. Steph Basson there with that report for us live from The Hague. Thank you so much, Steph. Well, Russia has intensified its offensive in eastern Ukraine. And as the war wages on, President Vladimir Putin is thousands of troops to the front line. But Ukrainian officials say that Moscow appears to be suffering severe losses. Rob McBride reports now from the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv.
A big increase in fighting has been reported along much of the front in the east at a number of different points. The Russians continuing attempts to try to surround the city of Avdiivka, just outside Russian-controlled Donetsk. But we're also getting reports of more fighting at places like Bakhmut and Kupiansk, where battle has raged now for many months. According to the Ukrainians, the Russians once again seeming to have adopted this tactic of sending in waves of infantry, accepting, it seems, very high casualties in return, but very little being gained in terms of territory. As this push continues, President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine has met with his military commanders to discuss the situation across the country. Also, we're getting reports with the increased fighting in the south around Kherson. An order has now been given for the evacuation of 800 children from frontline settlements there. Robert Bride, Al Jazeera, Kyiv.
Well, there were 17,000 people in the Ukrainian town of Orikhiv before the Russian war. Now, the few hundred remaining residents spent their days there underground. As Zain Basravi reports, many cities have now been created inside interconnected basements.
In town after war-ravaged town, rubble-filled streets people once strolled. Homes bear the scars of war, ghost towns near the front line. They may seem abandoned, but the hum of a generator, people talking, reveal life is carrying on underground.
As you can see, we're being shelled constantly. We tell people not to stay outside in groups. They should stay indoors or come here. People are living in other basements around the city, but they're not as safe as this one.
Offering public services, albeit scaled down, is about preserving dignity, something war strips away. A moment to reflect brings back a memory of a friend, he says, who died exactly 1 year ago to the day.
This is one of the only buildings in town that still has running water, which means there are hot showers. And over here, there is a fully functioning laundromat service. And if you walk into the next room, it's an entertainment space. And it has a makeshift cinema. There's books and music. There's a store where you can get snacks and hot coffee. All of this is quite impressive. It's more than just creature comforts. Here, it is a luxury considering we're just about a kilometer from Ukrainian trench positions.
A little bit of normal life in the middle of war. A place to see friends, get rations, a hot drink. To get and give help. To avoid being alone in the worst of times.
To be honest, I cry in what remains of my apartment. I had a life there, I had friends, I had family. Of course, it's not a mansion, but it was mine. Right now, I'm like a dog with a back in the field. Here with people, I forget about that a little.
People say they are used to living near the front line, but the sounds of shells never stops being scary. In a place like this, every life becomes precious. Even the local animal shelter is still open for business, still treating sick pets. But everyone here knows all roads south lead to Russian positions, to danger, and simply to remain is to resist. Zain Basravi, Al Jazeera, Hulyai Polya, Ukraine's southern Zaporizhia region.
Well, the International Energy Agency has warned governments that stronger energy policies are desperately needed to limit rising global temperatures. In its annual report, the IEA says that average temperatures could rise by around 2.4 degrees Celsius this century. That's obviously well above the 1.5 degree threshold set under the 2015 Paris Treaty on climate change. Bolivia has issued a red health alert in Santa Cruz due to dangerous air quality caused by fires in that region. Schools have been suspended and people are also being asked to wear face masks. Wildfires have been raging in that area, triggered by agricultural burning. Now, before we go, our Gaza correspondent, Yumna Al-Sayed, has been documenting life in Gaza City after 17 days of Israeli airstrikes. And just a warning, the noise that you'll be hearing throughout her video diary is from Israeli drones overhead. That's a sound that follows Gaza residents everywhere they go.
Hi, I'm Yunus Sayed. I'm still in Gaza City with my family.
Let's see if I can get this.
A lot of bullet holes and a lot of leaflets like these that were dropped on us in our neighborhood, in our street here. And they basically say that being in Gaza or remaining in Gaza City.
This is the reporter who was doing a live report as Israel hit the tower block behind her.
Here in my neighborhood. And everything looks so empty. You could barely see people in the streets. This area used to be a very densely populated area.
Okay, Dr. Mansour, I believe this is your house, just opposite to the bombardment that we can see in Al Abbas police office and the mosque. Why did you decide to come back after you went south?
Everything is under the rockets. So where we are going to decide to go? North or south, it doesn't matter where it is.
And now this is the bakery where you can see people are standing in a line to actually be able to buy some bread. This has been
the situation for so long in Gaza. Thousands of families have been instantly displaced. It's just...
There you go, guys. That's the result of the bombs we see.
You can literally just see the scare in Gaza City now and in Gaza streets. All over the strip, actually. You can just hear the sound of drones and Israeli war jets in the skies of Gaza. Well, everyone says, everyone feels that there's no safe place in the strip to be in anymore.
Well, that's the news, huh? I'll be back in a moment.
Well,
How many politicians want to be the Republican?
there you go, guys.
Anything they can to get a
That's what Gaza's looking like now. Looks like the inside of my house.
A quizzical look at US politics, the bottom line. Amidst the world slowdown, we stand firm as home to a fifth of global nickel reserves. Indonesia is poised to lead the global EV battery industry. We adeptly manage our abundant resources and play a vital role in solar energy harnessing, offering 75% of global carbon credit potential, committed to environmental protection, enhancing investment climate through digital licensing. Indonesia, your better tomorrow.
Coveted beyond wealth, taken without hesitation, fought and died for. Power defines our world.
We live here. We make the rules, not them.
They find an enemy and then they try and scare the people with that enemy.
People in Power investigates, exposes, and questions the use and abuse of power around the globe. On Al Jazeera.
This is no drill, this is no joke, and this is war.
This is just an airstrike now that you heard. It seems that it's very close here from the area of where we are.
More rockets constantly in Ashkelon being fired from Gaza.
They moved to the southern areas of the Gaza Strip and they have been targeted by Israeli airstrikes.
Very close to the Gaza border, we've seen a lot of tanks. And in the last half an hour or so, we are seeing increasing numbers of troops.
This is giving a picture of what kind of the war it could be on this front.
One of the Israeli captives released by Hamas tells of her experience. Hello there, I'm Stasia Tate. This is Al Jazeera Live from Doha. Also coming up. The number of Palestinians killed in Israeli attacks on Gaza now exceeds 5,000 as more and more airstrikes target the strip. Health authorities in Gaza warn that patients in intensive care are at risk and plead for fuel to run hospital generators. Human Relief Agency is calling for a massive increase in aid into Gaza as the few truckloads of supplies allowed in are distributed. Well, one of the Israeli captives released by the armed wing of Hamas on Monday evening has been telling her story. Yochebed Lifshitz was one of two elderly captives released for what it says were humanitarian reasons. Their husbands that remain behind in Gaza. This release followed mediation efforts from both Qatar and Egypt.
I went through hell, something I didn't think human beings would do to one another. I have never gone through anything like it in my life. They arrived at the kibbutz and kidnapped us, taking us to surrounding fields. The young men beat me and hurt me, and they took my watch and jewelry. They were riding motorbikes and took us to the entrance of a tunnel. When they arrived, they told us that they believed in the Quran and wouldn't do anything bad to us. We walked through the tunnels and reached a large hall where about 20 people were gathered. Then they said separate us, and there was a doctor with us, another doctor who came every 3 days, and the nurse who examined us and gave us the same medicines that we get at home. We were accompanied by a young man on a bike whose hands and legs were injured and who deserved mercy. They provided us with everything we needed and were afraid of disease spreading. They were also very friendly and shared their food with us.
Well, let's bring in Alan Fisher. He joins us now from occupied East Jerusalem. Alan, just listening there to what she had to say, that the story that she's been telling, it sounds obviously hugely traumatic during the kidnapping, but also like she was treated relatively well while she was in custody.
Well, it is a remarkable story from an 85-year-old woman who was going about her normal business on a Saturday morning when suddenly she saw people coming through the fence. A fence, she said, cost millions of dollars to build and ultimately turned out to prove useless. She was hauled onto a motorbike and taken towards Gaza. She said it was like flying. There were people in front of her and people behind her. She had her legs on one side of the motorbike and her body, her heart, she said, on the other, and then was taken into Gaza. As you heard, she said she was beaten on the way there, but once she was in the tunnels and handed over to another group, it appears that she was treated relatively well, given the medication that she needs.
Hold on, I need to plug in. Hold on, I've lost the power, so I need to plug in, and then I need to plug in, and I need to turn the TV down, like I said yesterday. So have a look at the wall. Talk amongst yourselves for a minute. I just move the desk so I can move the TV. Give me a sec. Oh, I need to plug in here. Hold on. I'm plugging in, guys. Sorry, it'll be a slight technical delay while I hold on. My lead's jammed. Here we go. Right. Oops. Oh, fiddlesticks. I left the aerial plugged in. So, 2 minutes, guys, I'll be back. All right, I'm coming back, guys. As I said, oh. Hold on, guys. Don't leave. I'm coming back. It's just I'm plugging the TV in so you can see. Because last night it froze on me. Yeah, come on. No signal. Why have I got no signal? Hold on. Right, just got to put the air in. Have we got a picture? Yeah. Hold on. Right, okay. I don't want to cancel the feed because I'll have to do a new link for that. And I really don't want to do that.
From the inside continues to suffer with the lack of the ICU units and the incubators, carrying premature children are under direct life-threatening danger as the fuel is completely running out of the hospitals. The hospital has also been trying to run few of the departments it has on solar panels and solar energy, but that the consuming or the power needed to run those departments is huge. And
Right.
the solar panels that are
There you go.
are
Now you
too
can see the
little.
telly.
This is how the situation
Gaza
continues
is
to
looking
develop
very flat.
in time inside the hospital.
We know that no fuel has come in on any of the 54 aid trucks that have made it into the strip. But do you know if any of the other suppliers have made it to Al Shifa?
We were told by the Red Cross that they have taken all the medical supplies and aids that were medications. Sorry, to be specific about what was sent. What was sent was medications in that humanitarian convoy to the Ministry of Health, and that the Ministry of Health will be the one distributing it to the hospitals. But also the Red Cross has told us that the hospitals of the North and Gaza City are in dire need to a lot of medications and medical resources and other machinery, medical devices and equipment here where they have completely run out of supply, and that the supply that they already had was completely used and even given to other hospitals. So even if the medications had been distributed to hospitals like Al-Shifa, if that is what the Ministry of Health has been saying, that it's going to distribute it to all hospitals of the Strip, it's still saying that these medications are the least to be provided, or as they say, quoting them, are just a drop in an ocean of the need of these hospitals in the Gaza Strip.
And the needs are so huge. Yumna El Sayed there for us outside Al Shifa Hospital in Gaza City. Thank you so much, Yumna. Well, let's now speak to Hani Abu Sheba. He joins us from Khan Yunis. Now, that's in the south of the Gaza Strip. Hani, the bombardment has been continuing through the night in both southern and central Gaza Strip. Can you describe what you've been seeing also just in the last few hours?
Yes, well, the mass bombardment and
The buzzing you hear,
continue
that's
to create
Israeli
more
drones.
tragedies among Palestinians in the southern part of the Gaza Strip, the part that was designated as a safe area for Palestinians to evacuate to only people finding themselves under massive bombardment and heavy artillery shelling. Well, the scenes from the hospital, where I'm reporting from Nasser Hospital, is the second largest public health facility in the city of Khan Yunis, is no different than the scenes from a Shifa complex. With the 2 strikes in the past hour or so, the hospital is overwhelmed with large number of casualties. So the first airstrike targeted a residential home next to the Palestinian Red Crescent Society. 5 people pronounced it right at the spot, but there are more people under the rubble, and with keeping that in mind, the number of people who are killed is expected to rise. And just 20 minutes after that strike, in the back street of the Red Crescent, the Palestinian Red Crescent Society, another residential home was targeted without a warning. The house, as we were told by our source, was full of people, evacuees, in addition to the owner of the building who hosted the people who ran from the northern part in Gaza to the city of Khan Yunis. We did walk a little bit in the hospital corridor, and it's only little space for your footstep. It's not the situations are overwhelming, and we think the hospital is on a brink of a catastrophe very, very soon.
You speak there about being on the brink of a catastrophe. We know that the aid needs are huge. Now, we were talking about the 54 trucks that have made it into the Gaza Strip. That was explicitly intended for the south. Is anyone receiving that in Khan Yunis?
Well, so far, the plan or the mechanism of how these are going to be delivered are unknown, and there seems to be secrecy on the process of how these aids are going to be delivered. That could be in abiding by whatever preconditions the Israeli government put forward to the United Nations as the official body managing the process of humanitarian aid. But we know in a short while ago, we knew about that the Red Cross will be the official body responsible for medical aid to reach hospitals. It is only the hope of so many people that this will reach a Shifa hospital, because we know that all aid have limited geographical parameter. They're all intended to the south.
Hani Abu Sheba there with that live report for us from Khan Yunis. Thank you, Hani. Well, at least one Palestinian has died in custody after another night of arrests in Israeli raids across the occupied West Bank. Nida Ibrahim is in Ramallah with more details.
We know that Omar Daragme, a 58-year-old who has been arrested
the question
on October
they're
9th,
failing to ask is why were these people raided and arrested in the West Bank? As per normal, the media are only given half a story, not the total story.
Basically subjecting them to violence as well as torture, leading to the death of the prisoners. So these are all families of people who have been detained by the Israeli forces, some of them just in the past 2 weeks, because we've been seeing the numbers of those detained by Israeli forces increase, and people have been sharing their testimonies of these Israeli arrests and the raids and how it was very, very violent. But the most important thing for these people here is that they need to know what's happening with their sons, and they can't. Our understanding is that some of those arrested are affiliated or have been in the past affiliated with Hamas, but there are people who have been arrested who are just workers from inside the besieged Gaza Strip, who used to have military permits to work inside Israel. those people as well have been arrested. There are very conflicting reports about the numbers. Remember, people here usually approach NGOs, talk to them about the status of the prisoners, but after the escalation, they haven't been able to get much information, so they don't know what's happening with them.
Well, still ahead here on Al Jazeera. Diplomatic fault lines exposed at the UN as a renewed resolution is presented by the United States.
Too often, Afghanistan is portrayed through the prism of war. But there were many Afghanistans. Thanks to the brave individuals who risked their lives to protect it from destruction. An extraordinary film archive spanning 4 decades reveals the forgotten truths of the country's modern history. The Forbidden Reel Part 1, The Birth of Afghan Cinema on Al Jazeera.
In-depth analysis of the day's headlines.
Israel says their objective is to completely eliminate Hamas, not just their capability.
Informed opinions.
Large numbers of civilians killed, including children, the cutting of electricity. This is a clear war crime.
Frank assessments.
Quite frankly, China's position is it's not going to get involved in anything militarily. They're going to continue to call for peace and talks.
Inside Story on Al Jazeera.
Bold and untold stories from Asia and the Pacific on Al Jazeera.
Welcome back. You're watching Al Jazeera. I'm Nastasia Tay here in Doha. Let's remind you of our top stories. Nearly 5,800 Palestinians have now been killed in Israeli airstrikes on Gaza, according to the latest update from the Health Ministry. It also says another 96 Palestinians have been killed in the occupied West Bank. The Israeli government says more than 1,400 Israelis have been killed since Hamas launched its attack on October the 7th. Arrests have spiked in the occupied West Bank. More than 1,300 Palestinians have been detained there over the past 2 weeks. And Israel has confirmed 222 people, both Israelis and foreigners, have been detained by Hamas and other Palestinian factions. While Israel's bombardment has completely destroyed entire neighborhoods in Gaza, one of those areas is Al-Zahra, which had 22 residential blocks. Many of them have been leveled during the 17 days of Israeli bombing. Palestinian journalist Mutayez Al-Azaiza has been documenting the destruction.
I want to show you this scene. I'm in the middle of Al-Zahra neighborhood in central Gaza, which was bombed by Israeli airstrikes. The entire area is leveled, including all residential buildings. Entire families were displaced, and there were many human casualties as well. I don't know where the people will go or if there's a shelter for them. Each residential building had about 60 families.
Well, attempts to get competing resolutions on the conflict through the UN Security Council have exposed some pretty deep diplomatic fault lines. Now, the US has finalized its version with some key changes, though. Gabriel Elizondo has more now from New York.
There are 2 new points to this U.S. resolution that will go to the Security Council. I want to point them out. Number 1 is it calls for all measures necessary, such as a humanitarian pause, to allow for full and rapid, safe humanitarian access in accordance with international law. Key phrase there, humanitarian pause. Previously, the U.S. had not agreed to that. In fact, the U.S. vetoed a Brazil resolution that called for a humanitarian pause just last week. Also in the new version and final version of the U.S. draft
It says any movement of people must be voluntary. This is new as well. And this goes to the fact that Israel had really demanded that people in the north of Gaza move to the south. In this new version of the U.S. draft, or the U.S. final version here, it's saying any movement of people must be voluntary. Now, there was supposed to be a vote on this resolution early Tuesday, but that has been postponed to either late Tuesday or perhaps even Wednesday or Thursday. The reason we're thinking is because Antony Blinken, the Secretary of State, is planning to be at the UN Tuesday, and it's perhaps because he wants more time to try to convince other member states to support the U.S. resolution. Gabriel Zondo, Al Jazeera, in New York.
Well, the Emir of Qatar says that Israel should not be given a green light for unconditional killing in Gaza. Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani says the fighting between Israel and Hamas is a dangerous escalation that threatens not only the region, but the world.
We say enough. Israel cannot be given the green light or carte blanche for killing, nor should the occupation, unjust siege, or illegal settlements be ignored. At this time in history, power, water, food, or medicine shouldn't be used as a weapon against an entire population. We're calling for the regional and international community to take a stand amid this grave escalation, which undermines peace and security not only in the region, but in the whole world. We call for an immediate end to this war that has gone beyond all limits.
Well, turning to some other news now, and Russia has intensified its offensive in eastern Ukraine. As the war there continues, President Vladimir Putin is pushing thousands of troops to the front line. But Ukrainian officials say that Moscow appears to be suffering severe losses. Rob McBride reports from the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv.
Fighting has been reported along much of the front in the east at a number of different points. The Russians continuing attempts to try to surround the city of Avdiivka, just outside Russian-controlled Donetsk. But we're also getting reports of more fighting at places like Bakhmut and Kupiansk, where battle has raged now for many months. According to the Ukrainians, the Russians once again seeming to have adopted this tactic of sending in waves of infantry, accepting, it seems, very high casualties in return for very little being gained in terms of territory. As this push continues, President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine has met with his military commanders to discuss the situation across the country. Also, we're getting reports with the increased fighting in the south around Kherson. An order has now been given for the evacuation of 800 children from frontline settlements there. Rob McBride, Al Jazeera, Kyiv.
Well, there were 17,000 people in the Ukrainian town of Orikhiv before the Russian war. Now the few hundred remaining residents spend their days underground. As Zain Bazravi reports, many cities have now been created inside interconnected basements.
In town after war-ravaged town, rubble-filled streets people once strolled. Homes bear the scars of war, ghost towns near the front line. They may seem abandoned, but the hum of a generator, people talking, reveal life is carried.